What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash. And today, we're going to be doing a little bit of NFL fan fiction, as Theo calls it. We're predicting some trades that are going to go down in this upcoming offseason, whether it be before the draft, after the draft, maybe it'll be the day before the season starts. Who knows? But we've got some trades to predict here. Kind of in the wake of Myles Garrett demanding a trade, Cooper Kupp hearing that he's going to be traded and, kind of airing that news out. And Matt, I think you wanted to start with receivers, so we'll probably do that. But before we get into it, I always have to ask, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Wednesday evening?
I'm doing very good. I've been off my phone most of all day outside to get a little bit of work done, I guess. I woke up early. I went to the gym. I came back. I got a little more work done. I did some reading. I was a little late to this record because I was reading and I didn't have my phone by. I didn't know the time. So
this is episode 2 of Matt having his life together.
I'm back. I'm pretty tired though, but like sort of an accomplished tired. So I've won. I've put up a good performance today.
To keep it on the book theme, I'm at Denver Public Library to record this episode. It recently reopened. It was closed for a long time because they found a meth in the pages of the books.
Oh my gosh.
Can't say I know what that's about, but it wasn't my fault. And now it's open.
You might know what it's about.
I mean, it seems pretty self-explanatory, I guess. There's meth in the pages. That's what it's about. So, and people couldn't have that, and so they shut it down, and now it's reopened again, and it's a great place to come study and I guess record a podcast, because I also kind of lost track of time and was like, fuck it, we'll do it live here.
Live from the library. At least you had your mic with you.
That's true. That's true. I did think maybe I would be here till 3, so I prepared.
Well,
what about you, Blaiden?
Preparation. I'm doing all right. My band went and had a studio session over the weekend, and we recorded a song, and it came out really, really good. We're really excited. So we're about to get masters and probably release it sometime in April, I would guess. And
it's going to go viral.
It's going to go vi-vi. It's going to go vi-vi.
Yeah.
You know what they're saying, man. That it's gonna go crazy.
Not only do I know what they're saying, I'm the they saying it.
Matt is the they saying it. Get ready for Taboo by Atessa. It's gonna move mountains, feed families, whatever you want to call it. Let's talk about some football, shall we, fellas?
Let's do it. There's a lot of potential trades as I was looking at it. There's more than I thought there was going to be when I was suggested the episode, honestly.
It's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have.
That it was going to be a little small.
I didn't think it was going to be small, but there's just a lot of options, I guess. I think it makes sense to start with receiver, as it seems to me, I don't know when you guys looked at this, it seems to me like that's the position that has the most candidates of any.
I mean, yeah, when you think about just the number of trade rumors that get proposed or the number of trade suggestions that get proposed by fans, I mean, every year it seems like the Ravens should trade for X receiver.
Well, everyone can use a receiver.
Someone's going to trade for T. Higgins. It's just every year with the receiver stuff. So, and Cooper Kupp's obviously, someone who's supposed to get traded this season. Do you want to start with him, or do you want to start with...
Sure, let's start with him. What were your thoughts?
I was going to ask you the same thing. Where were you going to think he's going to go? But it's tough, because Kupp is a very versatile player that can operate in a lot of different offenses. He fit really well in McVay's offense, but if you think about a team that could really use like a super reliable target who's good at blocking, just opens up a lot of things for your offense. The first team that kind of comes to mind for me would be the Patriots, kind of being that like Keenan Allen-esque role for what Keenan Allen was for Herbert, just ultra reliable. Give Drake May someone to just get the ball to, man. And then he can also help you out in the run game. So that would be kind of my first suggestion.
Yeah, that was kind of the player Jalen Polk was supposed to be, and it just was such a miserable rookie year for him. It would not surprise me if they were already looking to move on and kind of let that ship sail, because he just gave them absolutely nothing as a second-round pick. And I agree with the Patriots as a landing spot. I was looking at PFF's grading of all the receiving cores earlier today, and I think they had the third lowest grade of receiving grade as a unit of any team last year. So if Kupp is the best wide receiver out there, I think it would behoove the Patriots to go out and get a guy like that.
He would probably
I was watching his tape in the playoffs,
like Higgins.
And it wasn't bad, really. Like it wasn't bad. He just didn't really seem to be getting a lot of love from the play calling, and wasn't really a featured part in the progressions after missing time and definitely losing a step from where he was in 2021, right, when he won the Triple Crown. The tight ends, obviously Puka Nacua demands a huge share of it, and Demarcus Robinson being a good player. Like, Kupp just kind of faded into the background, and he caught some tough ones in the playoffs. He caught a big fade ball in both of the games that they played versus the Eagles, where he sped past Isaiah Rodgers and knocked his hands down as he tried to slow him up, and was able to make a big play downfield. And then there was one other play that he had against the Vikings in the playoffs where Stafford released this big fade. I mean, as soon as he hit the top of the drop, Kupp ran like a good 10 yards more downfield, like turned around, the ball was right on him, and he made a great adjustment. So like he was still winning down the field in the playoffs. Like he knows how to run routes, obviously. He knows how to block. And he had a 2% drop rate and a 50% contested catch rate last year. So I really like Kupp as a trade candidate. I wrote down just Packers, honestly. I was like, man, he's good. I liked what you said earlier. What scheme needs somebody who can block, move all around the formation, someone with reliable hands?
Someone who can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think I would really love the Packers to make a move for him. I mean, their receiving core, we talked about it on our all stay hot team, that we could do the all Joe team, or the all whatever we said it was, the all bad team. Yeah. And I think you could put two Packers receivers on there, like the way Jaden Reed faded down the stretch. Dontavion Wicks having like a 25% drop rate most of the season. Christian Watson tearing his ACL in the last game of the season, so who knows when he'll be back and what the deal is when he is. And then Dobbs, he demanded a trade at one point. He's had a couple head injuries now. He had a really scary one to end last year. And none of those guys are as good as Cooper Kupp is probably anyway. And so I think it kind of stinks to have all these kind of good players, and you just don't know who the odd man out is going to be, and you don't want to get rid of the wrong one. And if you brought in Kupp, it probably would freeze somebody out. But I think for the Packers, you can't just keep it the same after last year and the disappointment that group was as a unit. So I like the Patriots as a spot, but I also do think Green Bay should make a move for a vet receiver, and Kupp coming from that offense would be tantalizing. And then the Chiefs was another team that came to mind. But Matt, who are you thinking for Cooper Kupp?
Well, I mean, there's so many teams out here that could use a receiver, especially since I think Kupp's price is probably going to be, I don't know, probably borderline 4-3 sort of area, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of the feeling that I get. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a late third. I wouldn't be surprised if it was an early fourth, because he's got a contract and he's older and he's injury prone.
Definitely.
Honestly, maybe that makes me feel 4. I think the Broncos could use some help as maybe a guy who could really cook in the short game and could help them, reliably create like we're talking about with the running, maybe a better on the ground scheme. And I think the QB friendly guys, which I think Kupp really fits into the category of, considering just like his feel as a route runner, probably is better, or like maybe a little bit more valuable for younger guys. But again, there's like, if he went to the Ravens, would that shock you? Like, not really. Or the Bills. Like, there's a lot of teams that could move for him. Although I guess with with Buffalo, you worry, about the salary cap in a way where the Ravens have a lot more. But these teams are probably going to be aggressive. I don't think that either of those teams are just out of the trade market for a receiver, especially since we saw both of them try to be aggressive in bringing guys in during the deadline. And Amari Cooper is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. If Buffalo thinks there's a better option than him out there for a fourth rounder, with how all in they should be, they'd be stupid not to look at it. So I think there's a number of teams, but I think the Broncos made sense to me. And I like the Patriots, and I like the Packers too.
Yeah, I like the Broncos call. That's a screen-heavy team, and that's, I think, again, one of Kupp's jobs in LA is blocking for Puka Nacua, who catches a ton of screens, right? More than just about any other receiver. You want to get the ball in Puka Nacua's hands on a screen, and a lot of times he'll be in a stack with Kupp blocking for him, and that's a staple of this offense that was, behind the line of scrimmage a lot. So he could help them in obviously the receiving game and catching passes, but I think he could help them, like you mentioned, in their blocking schemes as well.
Yeah. I want to move on next to Garrett Wilson. He's been talked about a lot recently. And my take on him is that if he does get traded, it's probably not going to be to an AFC team. I can't imagine the Jets doing that right now with all the other contenders. And there's plenty of teams that would be looking to get him. Like I had Washington as a team that could use another receiver and maybe wanted to add like another star. The Packers are up there. And maybe if the Falcons wanted to add another crazy weapons, and if maybe they moved Pitts, although I don't view them as a team that's really looking to make like a huge splash like that. But overall, I think he probably won't end up being moved, is my guess. That's what I had written down for him. They moved off of Rodgers. It seemed like that was the point of contention. And while I totally could understand if Wilson wants out anyway, because the Jets aren't in a good spot and are probably going to go through a rebuild, he is only 3 years through his career. That's pretty early for a guy to say, hey, we're so bad, I'm done. And it just feels like, man, if you lose Wilson and you're the Jets, it's like a total rebuild. That's just like a good young player saying, I don't even want to be here. And to me, they're a team that doesn't necessarily have to start from scratch if they can figure out something at QB. So I don't think he'll be moved. I think his value is probably a late first, early second plus type situation, but my guess is no trade.
Yeah, he hasn't demanded anything. Adams is a good call. I mean, they brought him in, and he was going to play with Rodgers, and now Rodgers is gone. So right. Where does that leave him? I think if I'm the Jets, I think I'd want to leave all that together, honestly, and become a situation that is attractive for a quarterback. I think if you're the Jets, you're probably not looking to tank or blow it up or anything. I mean, I think of quarterbacks kind of like pilots or like race car drivers, and then kind of the team around them is the car. And the Jets have a good car right now. I mean, they got good weapons on the outside. Like, they've got some intriguing offensive line pieces, Tippmann and Vera Tucker and Olu Fashanu, and, it's Breece Hall and Braylon Allen behind them. Like, I think I'd kind of want to keep that core together. And really, if the play calling and the quarterback sync up, there's a lot that can go right in that offense and with that defense still. Mm-hmm. So if I was the Jets, I think I'd be just looking to see what quarterbacks I could attract. And I'd be probably, at the moment, I wouldn't be shopping these wide receivers. I think...
Would it change your mind if you knew that the Jets would save $30 million in cap space over this year and next year if they traded Devontae?
Maybe. It might.
Washington is where I would picture Devontae going. Like, that's where I'm like, okay, the cap space would work, and it would be like a good number 2 receiver to have next to Terry McLaurin. It's like, yeah, he'll be 33 and 34, but like if they're going to try and like go all in and win while they're hot now, like now's the time to do it while Jaden Daniels is at his cheapest.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. I almost wonder if they do trade him, the most likely place that he goes is wherever Rodgers ends up if he keeps playing. You know, he could get traded to Rodgers again. I mean, they had a stretch in December.
He's going back to the Raiders. Rodgers is going to go to the Raiders. Brady's going to orchestrate all of this.
From December on, Adams had 66 yards and a touchdown, 109 yards and a touchdown, 198 yards and 2 touchdowns, 68 yards and a touchdown, 47 yards and 0 touchdowns, 88 yards and a touchdown. That's a super productive stretch with the Jets.
He's
super productive. He is still nice with it. And that was with Rodgers, though. So he might be able to say, like, hey, you, me, one more season on the Steelers, and we're going crazy or something. So I don't know. I don't exactly know where Adams would get traded to, except for like if Rodgers does sign with the team and doesn't retire, that immediately becomes somewhere that I'm like, that would be on Adams' watch yet again.
I could see Adams just not fitting the timeline of the current team if they don't get a serious quarterback option. And honestly, I could see Adams saying, I want to play with a better QB for possibly sort of my last go around here. I thought the Chargers made sense. They need somebody who is a true outside winner. They have Ladd. I think he's great, but he's not that type of guy. And while I do wonder if they would trade for a receiver like that after trading away multiple receivers who are older, and trying to save money in that way, different guys are different guys, and we see teams make moves like that all the time. So depending on price, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe a Chargers team that's like, dang, we kind of are now like one piece away from being really scary on offense and we like our defense. I could see that team saying, let's be a little bit more aggressive. Plus, they have a good amount of cap space. So I thought they made sense. It wouldn't shock me either way. I didn't have a strong opinion on whether or not he would or wouldn't be moved. But I think he's a strong candidate.
I think so too.
He's pretty likely to be moved. $38 million cap hit this year is just absurd for like, especially if the Jets are just going to go into the year with like no quarterback, which like it's very possible.
I hate to be this guy. That's true, but it is the Jets. Like they are kind of a little bit silly in the way that they build things out Jets sometimes. Fans. Although I liked the Adam moved at the times. I could see them bringing in, a vet or whatever. I don't even know what they're going to do at QB and saying, we think we can be competitive now. Or if they draft a guy, what if they move up in the draft? If you draft a QB in the top 10, there's no reason to think we shouldn't be good right away.
Okay, so I was going to ask this a little bit later, but I'll do it now. Do you think someone will trade up to one of the top 3 picks to take a quarterback?
No.
I don't think it's impossible, but I would say the odds are a little bit longer when I think there's really only one guy who's super. I don't know. I don't even know if there's one guy who's really quite that level this year, honestly. But maybe someone moves up slightly if they really like a guy. But it would surprise me.
It would surprise me too. I really think Cam Ward's hands are going to measure at like 9 inches at the combine. And I think he's super creative and he's got crazy balance and he's got a good arm. And we'll talk a lot about him in a quarterbacks episode, I'm sure. He's really nonchalant. And, he's got some great plays, definitely. But I just don't think his accuracy is consistent enough. I don't think he's got the physical profile. I don't think he is worth the number 1 overall pick if the Titans stay there and draft. I don't think that a team will be really looking to trade up for somebody like that. I mean, it is entirely possible. Like the Kenny Pickett draft when he was QB1. No one traded up for him just because he was the top quarterback available. And I think with Ward, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that someone would want to move up with the Titans. If the Titans are looking at this quarterback class and saying like, no, thanks, I'd like to move down. Why would you want to be moving up unless you just think the Titans don't know what they're talking about, which could be true, right? Like you can like a player better than them. But, if there was really they're already shopping the first overall pick. That was confirmed to us by Ian Rappaport. Like they're looking to move back and so they've already taken a look at this. Yeah, they've already taken a look at this quarterback class and said like, we don't want to pick. They desperately need one. And they said, we don't want to pick one. So it's going to be hard, I would imagine, to find somebody who's like wanting to pay money to move up to number one and then pick a quarterback in a class where the Titans have already kind of ruled it out. I don't want to say ruled it out. Anything can happen, but they're already looking to, the Bears weren't shopping the Caleb Williams pick is what I'll say ever. So,
yeah. I think someone should call Cleveland and say, hey man, we'll give you a lot of draft picks for that number 2.
I'm saying
they'll give them a lot of draft picks for someone, but it's not Cam Ward.
Oh.
But it's a good question if that first overall pick will be moved. Maybe it could. I mean, they could trade back and then a non-quarterback goes number 1. But
that's also true. It could not be for. It could be for Carter. It could be for Travis Hunter. But yeah. It's a trade episode, but I think it's very possible that number 1 pick could move just because it feels like there's a lot of possibility of who it could be. And if someone's really like excited about one guy and you're not really sure where he's going to go, maybe you just say, I'm just going to really ensure that I get my guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that someone trades up to number 1 for Hunter than it is that someone trades up number 1 for Ward. Like the corner wide receiver hybrid, like I talked about during Heisman season, like he legitimately deserved Bolitnikoff and like he legitimately deserved the Thorpe consideration. Like the fact that he's both of those things, I could see someone being like, man, I just got to have it. And then I could also see the Titans being like, where does that take us right now, as opposed to maybe picks in the future? So that I think it's more likely that someone like Hunter gets traded up for instead of Ward or Shedeur.
You could see it.
Are there any other receivers you wanna hit on?
Deebo, he demanded a trade.
Yes, there you go.
Where's
he gonna go?
I thought the Jaguars seemed like kind of a easy spot to pencil him in at. Liam Cohen, being the play caller there now, is somebody who loves to throw screens. He loves to be creative. I think that he's somebody who could get the ball in Deebo's hands in a variety of creative ways, like he did for, Chris Godwin when he was healthy. The way he used Jalen McMillan. They were so successful in the wide receiver run game this entire year until the playoffs when they fumbled that snap in their own red zone that really lost them that playoff game. Like every other one that they did this year was so successful. They like to fake like wide zone to one side and then run the end around the other way. And then it's like Tristan Wirfs lead blocking for you. So I definitely think that in his scheme, he's got to be looking at Deebo Samuel as like a great potential weapon if Deebo can get back to his old self. It's just, he's 29 years old. Will that ever come? I was looking at his numbers this year. He was averaging almost 60 yards a game from weeks 1 through 5. Then he missed that Chiefs game with pneumonia. And then after that, he was down at 40 yards per game, pretty much. So maybe that pneumonia was weighing on him. And I can totally imagine like, playing a whole football season, like with a really bad respiratory illness would probably like suck major ass and would probably make you really mid. So I could see that being something he can kind of bounce back from in the future. So I do think that he still would have some trade value maybe, and is worth taking a shot on for a team like Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think any of those guys who get creative in the run game or really like to lean on it might like to trade for Deebo. I think Jacksonville's a really good pick. I do wonder if Jacksonville's a team that's more trying to get off of some of the pass catchers that they're paying rather than bring in more guys. Like Christian Kirk, I think, is someone who could not be on Jacksonville anymore. Maybe the same with Evan Ingram. But I totally see your vision there. To me, he's also a guy where it's like a day 3 pick, probably, just because of the age and the fact that, he got paid at a level, I think, right after he got first team all pro, and then hasn't really been that type of player again since, if we're being honest. But I think it also wouldn't surprise me if they ended up cutting him. If it ended up being that they saved more money through a cut and they said it's not worth a day 3 pick. But San Francisco values those a lot, so who knows?
Yeah, this is where I had Pittsburgh sliding in and taking Deebo. Just felt like the right fit with Arthur Smith. I don't know.
They don't use motion enough for me. I think they're just a bit too static before the snap. Like, I honestly don't think
Deebo might like that. He kind of didn't like being the multifaceted, like,
he's going to be Devontae Adams with his releases now. I want him in a motion heavy offense. I'm afraid. Like, I want him as a threat to get the ball on a sweep, and then it's a pass concept, and you can maybe check it down to him after that and see what he can do after the catch. And to me, that just screams Liam Cohen. We'll see what direction Pittsburgh goes in going forward. If they continue to be the go ball and check down type of team, I don't think that's a good fit for Deebo at all.
No, I completely agree. Another big guy who's potentially getting moved is Tyreek Hill. I mean, you could argue that he's the biggest. He had all that talk about like, oh, I went out of here, and then he kind of took it back, but his cap hit's going to be super big in the future. And I think there's definitely some tension with him and the Dolphins organization overall. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was Miami who said, this isn't going to work. He's also not coming off of his best season whatsoever. I don't even think he cracked 1,000 yards. He had like 14 drops, which was the highest mark of his career. I still think he's a good player, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him on the move. I wouldn't be shocked to see somebody take probably the biggest swing you could, which is that he'll bounce back. And if he does, he's like as good as any other receiver in the NFL not all that long ago. To me, he's probably still a second round guy in terms of assets, because of just like his age and his salary number. But like if the Chargers did that, it could be exciting. If Washington did that, it could be exciting. And if Pittsburgh did that as a team that likes to throw like the go balls and whatnot, him and Pickens being your two options there would be pretty cool. I do just doubt that the Steelers are going to go invest in, maybe this is wrong, but like invest in another receiver that kind of has like off the field problems.
I don't know. I think that's exactly what they want to go do.
But that's what I'm saying is like, apparently that is what they do. It's almost exclusively what they do, it seems. So
Tyreek Hill in Pittsburgh.
In some ways, he would be a good fit there. But I'm not even 100% confident he gets moved. I don't know how to feel about Miami's offseason at all.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I don't know what happens with him as well. I was watching his tape a while ago when he right after the season ended, when he said that, like, I'm not going to be in Miami anymore. I was like, well, I guess he's probably going to be traded then. So I checked out, his late season film, and he's still very fast. Like, he's still very, 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 very fast. But I wonder about his buy-in, and his drop problem has been really bad going back to the end of last season. So, and of course that losing a step could happen at any time as he kind of enters his 30s. So he could be worth a big swing, like a first round pick. He still could be worth that, because like when he's on, I think he's just uniquely valuable, and like his speed just kind of makes him special. And I argued as him as the best wide receiver in the league for a while because of just how unique that is. I'll throw you one more team that could be interested in Tyreek Hill that I like. Arizona. They're kind of on the cusp right now. They're a team that needs a little bit more juice. Marv isn't super fast. Michael Wilson isn't super fast. Trey McBride's a big body, not super fast. You add Tyreek Hill's speed into that offense, and I think you start to get a really well-rounded, explosive passing offense that has, size and speed that you're looking for. And of course, you could Petzing could use him in the motion game and create that icon candy to run wide zone off of and all the things that they do. I think that would actually be a really, really fun place for Tyreek Hill to be is Arizona as they try to build from, bottom feeder to in the hunt to actually in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. Outside of the fact that imagining Tyreek Hill in a Cardinals jersey seems like vibe-wise washed city. 472 yards in 11 games, 3 touchdowns, but on like an uncomfortable amount of targets. But I don't disagree with you.
No,
fundamentally, I think I think I don't know if I would spend a first on him right now.
I don't know
how much
either.
You'd have to pay. It's like it would depend on the team. I like him as an aggressive move. I think that's an exciting thing to do, but there's a lot of risk, and you've got to. I mean, his cap hit. I don't know how this would play out if it trade, but his cap hit next year is like $50 million.
Yeah. The first round pick is probably a bit rich. He does seem like someone who might go for a little bit less than his name value.
Tyreek Hill at his contract, or like Igbuka or Golden coming out of this year's draft.
Right.
Probably Tyreek. Just
at $50 million cap hit, man.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe Golden seems pretty nice from what I've seen. So I would be down to pick him. And Igbuka is not bad either, but Tyreek is just a bit different. I mean, he is not that.
Yeah.
In 2024, he's disappointing, right? But in 2023, he was pacing for 2,000 yards for the majority of the season, and he won Offensive Player of the Year. No, or did somebody else take it from him? I think it was him.
I honestly don't remember it all. This is why I suck at trivia. I don't know.
Real.
He had to have won all of last year. We were talking about how he was like
he finished second. I think Justin Jefferson won it.
Him and Jefferson.
No, it must have been. It must have been a running back.
It was McCaffrey. Jesus.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Obviously.
Christian.
My fault.
Yeah, it is your fault, man.
Tyreek fell off at the end, but from weeks 1 to like 14, he was Offensive Player of the Year. So it's not like years away that his great ball was being played. So I'd be down.
I wouldn't give up a first, but that's just me. Any other receivers, or do you want to move on to a different position? Or do you want to just like spitball?
I don't think I have any more
Higgins,
receivers.
Of course.
Oh yeah, I think they're going to tag him though.
They did tag him. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be moved necessarily.
Yeah, tag and trade.
Why would you mess with that though? Is my thought. I've got a question for you guys. If we think like T's not hitting free agency, why would you trade him? That's where I'm at. Another guy I feel that way about, Matthew Stafford, has been in trade rumors recently. What do you guys make of that?
Why would you trade Stafford, man?
I guess
like, unless you think he's going to fall off this year.
I don't know. There's just been, I know like Daniel Jeremiah made a prediction that he'd be like the Giants starting quarterback next year. I don't know how plugged in he is, but
if I were the Rams, maybe this is what my thought would be. Maybe Stafford is old as hell, and he has known like arm issues, right? The wheels are going to fall off at some point, and while I don't think it's impossible, it does feel unlikely that he's the guy who makes it to like 41. You know what I mean? Like this is a year by year basis. As good as we think he is, and we think he's in whatever tier you want to put him in, like he's incredibly good. Can carry you to a Super Bowl type of level dude. But there's a whole lot of teams out here that are bad and like need to do something at quarterback. They have to. They haven't had a quarterback for too long, and they stink. And there's like guys whose jobs are on the line because they don't have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
If that desperation creates an incredibly good trade for you, from some desperate team, and already know you're going to have to transition eras here at some point, it might make sense to get out while the going's good and move him to, say, the Giants, a team that I don't really know how good they would be if they had Stafford. And I would say, how about this?
I see you've got the third overall pick.
I would not be. I would the third overall pick this year. Yeah, cool. What about your first round pick next year?
No way. It wouldn't cost both.
I'm not saying it would cost both.
I would ask for it.
I'd want the number 3 pick, but yeah, they could also get the pick next year too.
That's something
potentially, but I'd want the number 3, man. I wouldn't deal Stafford for a first round pick next year if I still think he's good. Like, I would want that number 3, man. And you can pair neighbors with a star quarterback, and you can make the playoffs in New York. And Joe Shane, you can save your job here. But I would be needing that number 3 pick.
Well, the question is, are the Rams bad enough to be picking high enough, or would they be spending more capital the next year trying to get a QB? Might be more valuable to have the capital in a future draft. I don't know.
I think the Rams are good enough at replacing talent to just kind of let this ride.
QB is a whole different animal.
If they traded Stafford away, they'd like have Darnold in the building starting for them within like 24 hours.
Probably.
But that puts you in a new kind of purgatory.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this is a question. How do the Rams avoid QB purgatory? Because guess what? You get in QB purgatory, McVay's getting turned on in 3 years. I guarantee it. We know it for a fact.
6 months.
We've seen it. It's happened to literally everyone.
Yeah.
So if I'm McVay, what should be your number one goal if you're Sean McVay? Your number one goal long term. Avoid that. It's more important than literally everything else. Easily. If I'm McVay and I feel like I can give myself a good opportunity to do that, because the fans will survive a transition, a rebuilding year. Now, my thought is that the Rams just like aren't that interested in doing this. I think they're just going to keep Stafford and build on what they have. Because they're pretty competitive now. Because Stafford isn't like the 13th best quarterback in the NFL. He's not like a good starter.
He's like almost top 5.
He's like, he's like arguably top 5 if it wasn't for like the top 5 being so well rounded. But I don't know. I might have him above Herbert or whoever or whatnot. So I think they're going to keep him and probably keep rolling. But if they got like a great, huge offer and they said, we might be bad for a year because the quarterbacks next year look like they might be good, and we might get some assets for next year and just like really try to take a big swing on our next quarterback and lock that down, they could totally end up looking smart to do so.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting paid a lot over the next 2 years, and they're looking at restructuring his contract. And Jordan Rodriguez, their beat reporter, says like there's not a lot of progress being made in any restructure. So I could definitely see a reality where they're thinking, okay, like we got 2 years left on this thing. If we get a great deal, sometimes it's just good business to pull the trigger. But I also think like Stafford getting paid a lot is not the biggest deal. Like Stafford is right to say like, look, Jordan Love makes $1 trillion. Trevor Lawrence makes $1 trillion. Yeah. Tua Tagovailoa makes $1 trillion. Like paying Stafford a top 5 quarterback salary is like not that big of a deal right now, despite the injury concerns. So I think at the end of the day, the Rams are like the best dark horse in the league as long as Stafford and McVay are together and Puka Nacua and their line can get the pressure that it did last year. Like they were they were like a center away from beating the Eagles, and they could have won the Super Bowl from there. So why would you? I could see it if an offer too good to be true fell into their laps, but I just don't know if that's in the cards for them this year. And they'll start talking about what you're talking about, Matt, is like the QB purgatory that this sets them in. And we had a Super Bowl window and now we don't. And what was the point of that? Like for Mason Graham, or I guess for whoever it is that they pick at that point. Like,
that's the other interesting thing is that, like, honestly, like, are they going to go at a defensive line again? I feel like they've already put a lot into their defensive line, and they really like their guys. Not that you shouldn't be drafting best player available at 3, but you know, it's possible. It's like the positions just don't really quite line up, and they have bigger needs, but it doesn't make sense to draft somebody that high. And it's like I'd really be concerned if I was McVay on what I'm doing next at QB. That would be near my number one priority.
Yeah, you'd be a lot more stressed than you were the day before about just the long-term future of the Rams. Like, what did I just do? I just don't think it would be worth it for them to close an open Super Bowl window to trade. I think you should just pay him, and if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. And there's such a good situation for a quarterback to land in. At the same time, it's like why not rush? Why not let Stafford finish his career here and then figure it out later? I don't think he'll be moved. I don't understand. I don't quite understand where the hype is coming from. I think they should just stay the contenders that they are.
Yep, I agree. You don't really benefit much from the cap this year to trade him anyway. Your dead cap and cap hit is basically identical. It would be more beneficial next year, I get, but it looks like $31 million, which is like, it's not nothing, but
they'd have to extend him to keep him.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like I don't know if it's worth trading him and then trying to, because even if you trade him now and you go out and get a new quarterback, there's no guarantee that guy ends up being good. You might still end up being in QB purgatory or whatever. So I think you just kind of play it out, be good while you are good right now, and then you deal with the quarterback bridge when you cross it.
Yeah, I agree.
So Stafford is staying in LA as we have dictated. Can I propose I propose at least one player who should be traded from the Browns, other than Myles Garrett, who I think should stay.
Who should be traded?
At least one of Greg Newsome or Martin Emerson. They should have traded these guys last year. Do you think there is any market for those players at this point, though?
I think there's a market for a Browns corner.
Yeah, I think there is, but I think if I was calling the Browns, I would ask for a little bit higher for this rebuild. But I don't know. I think you could move them for day 3 picks probably, but
yeah,
I don't think that they would really be moving mountains here after the season that they just had. I mean, they failed on the back end outside of Ward, who had an all-pro caliber season.
Yeah, the Ward defense was great.
Yeah, he was great. Garrett had the same level of season that he had the year before, right? I think. But their defense wasn't as good. What happened? Well, Martin Emerson allowed every fade thrown his way to get completed. Yeah,
pretty much.
So
I mean, not an exaggeration. Almost every single one. Same with Newsome.
So selling low on them because they're bad and you don't want them, you're not going to get a lot of picks for them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to hang on to Garrett and Ward as long as I can, but I'm starting to wonder if that might be a lost cause.
But I think there would be contenders, but I just think there's going to be other corners available. Like, how about a Packer, Jaire Alexander, who the writing is on the wall for him with the franchise. He just has not played in enough games. He's good when he does play, but he just has not played enough, and he's on a massive salary. And I don't think it's any secret that they're looking to get rid of him. I don't even know if a team would trade for him on the salary that he's on, or if he'll just kind of be a cap casualty. But he's someone that will definitely be playing. Maybe not definitely, but I think there's like a 90% chance that he is not on the team anymore.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I could see, there's a number of teams that need a corner. Rams, Vikings, Panthers, honestly, could be in that mix if they really wanted to be, although I question whether or not they need to move for more expensive players or just actually use their draft picks. I also think Ward is probably a candidate for a lot of those teams. I really think the Rams could be aggressive on him, considering that they like to go for stars. And if we want to go back to the Browns guys, we got to talk about Myles Garrett. We can't bring up the Browns and then just talk about Martin Emerson.
No.
I'm afraid.
We don't have to talk about Garrett, man.
Dude,
I'm not getting traded. What are you?
Maybe he's not getting traded because the Browns are stubborn, but he has demanded one. And if they don't trade him,
it would be dumb. It would be incredibly dumb for them not to move him.
Would he even show up?
There'd be no point.
Well, he has a no trade clause, so he has leverage.
Well, he would love to be traded. The no trade clause.
Well, he has control over where he gets traded is the point.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean,
I think the Lions make the most sense of any team by a lot. We talked about this, I think, on the Super Bowl preview episode, but they have more money than all of the other big-time contenders. The thing about Garrett is that he's going to cost, like, everything to go trade for. He's going to cost a ton, like 2 first plus. I see people talk about, like, could 1 first-round pick this year? It's like, that doesn't matter. No way. Like, it's going to land him.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's going to have to be a seriously good team, and they're going to have serious cap space. There's a couple of teams, there's a handful of teams that fit that bill. Maybe Washington. Maybe, I don't know how much. Probably not the Chargers, but I think they have enough money to do it, and who knows? They could be aggressive.
They are losing both their. They could lose both their edge rushers.
They could lose both their edge rushers. Maybe their plan is Garrett. I'm just throwing out, like, there's nobody who isn't gonna ask about Garrett, probably. So any of these teams, but the thing with the Lions is that we've seen them be aggressive before. They like re-signing their guys to contracts who they know they want to keep around, and they trust that they can figure it out later. They've spent big assets to trade up to go get a guy like Jameson Williams. They will draft a running back. They aren't necessarily worried about the like perfect value necessarily as much as going out and getting a guy who they believe can be a star for their team. And there's no reason why you wouldn't have Garrett as like 100% confidence that he'd be that. On top of that, we've talked about their edge situation. It feels like you're going to need somebody there while Hutchinson reacclimates, and the defense. It's tough to find the good in between of somebody who's good but maybe cheap enough, where it's like this is just sort of a 1-year thing, but we still need someone who can like really cook because we don't want to spend the whole season waiting for Hutchinson to get back because who knows how that recovery is going to go. I think the easier play is just let's go get a superstar. And then Hutchinson, when he gets back to form, he gets back to form. So I like Garrett there, but I think it would cost a ton.
It would cost a ton. Yeah, Lions do make a lot of sense. I think Washington, I agree with. I mean, they were in the NFC Championship game, and I mean, they probably, I don't know if Garrett helps them win that game necessarily. I mean, he might get them closer, but I mean, they were totally outclassed in that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question is just if you were Myles Garrett, where would you want to go? And the answer is probably Detroit.
Lions. I'd want to go to the Lions. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to the Rams, depending on what else they do this offseason.
The Rams are kind of liable to do stuff like that, so I don't hate that suggestion because it's impossible to remember what they were thinking about doing with Brian Burns. At the same time, I don't want to say that anyone trading for Myles Garrett is just like straight up bad outside of teams that I just don't think are good enough for it to make sense. But I do feel like they've invested a lot in their defensive line. And it's like that's not where their biggest need lies at all. So
yeah, I think
they've
Lions,
got other things to figure out.
I think the Commanders make a lot of sense along with the Lions, just because I don't even think Howie Roseman probably watched the Super Bowl. He probably just was bothering Andrew Berry about Myles Garrett the whole time. Like, if you look at the Vegas odds of who's most likely to land him, it's Commanders #1, and then the Eagles are right there at #2, and they're losing Josh Sweat. And it's just totally something Howie Roseman is is going to want to do. I mean, he's the most aggressive. He is got to replace that need. And I just know that he would love to do it. And if you're the Commanders and you're not being aggressive, you'd be like John Mara in Hard Knocks, being like, I would have a hard time sleeping if Philadelphia got Myles Garrett. And if you're Washington, I just think you'd have to make 100% sure that, like, look, I don't even know if he fits our timeline, or like, we'll see. We weren't planning on this, but it's like, now that he's available, we have to do it because it would make our team, first of all, a lot better. But second of all, if we let this opportunity slip by, he'll end up in the midnight green, and we'll just be fucked.
Rival,
and we'll just be fucked, and the Eagles will repeat it in our house. Like,
dude, if the Eagles land Garrett, happen. Yeah, they're repeating. Like they are.
Yeah, I mean, your only hope to stop Howie is that he like builds a dream team type situation and just like adds too many people too quickly, and like the chemistry is off, and they just like are over aggressive and the thing breaks. But with him coming off a Super Bowl appearance, it just probably a Super Bowl win. It probably just won't happen that way. So like he's probably looking to be more aggressive this offseason than like ever before, because he knows that he's got this like base layer that can already win the Super Bowl. So it's like, what's it? We already know it's going to work. So
I will say, if I was Garrett, I'd want to go to the Eagles now. Actually.
Yeah,
I'd just like, yeah, send me to the Eagles, bro.
They've got money to burn, but they also do need to bring back Zach Bond. That would probably be a high priority item also. So
true,
but
they do got some big free agents.
But I'm sure Roseman's got his ways to make.
Roman might tell Bond to take a hike for Garrett too, and I love Zach Bond.
There's, I think, another edge rusher who's worth talking about. Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks last year.
I wrote him down.
When I brought up T. Higgins, my takeaway as well was that they probably aren't going to tag and trade him. If you lose Higgins, it's just really tough to understand what exactly you're doing here. And I think in general, the feeling around Cincinnati right now is that, okay, you let a bunch of guys walk because you couldn't pay them, and then the team got worse. And it's like, they had like a Super Bowl team, and to just basically not be able to afford to keep guys around when other franchises can be aggressive and restructure. I mean, Joe Burrow's coming out and publicly saying it. You're like, okay, that's not right. We need to prove that we can pay our guys. And I think the feeling here is that Hendrickson is on that list, and you've got to bring him back, and you've got to get this deal done and restructure him and whatever. However, Hendrickson actually might be the guy to trade. If you don't want to end up paying everybody, the thing with Hendrickson is that he's on the wrong side of 30. His value will never be higher than it is right now, considering that he's coming off a great season. While I don't give this take as like my opinion on why he's bad, I definitely believe that if you got a good enough offer, like if a team looked at that sack number and said, we're willing to give up a late first, we're willing to give up like a really high second plus, I would think about it, because things can happen quickly in the NFL. Players can move quickly. And if you give him a big deal and in a year and a half from now, he's really started to downturn, it's going to be even tougher for the Bengals to build. My gut is that they've just let too many guys go to do that. But if I was going to trade either him or T, I would easily trade him, I think. Maybe.
I have his name written down as well as a trade can. I mean, he talked at the Super Bowl that he's like, either I need a new extension now or they need to trade me, pretty much is what he said. And with the Bengals, that just, a lot of the time, they look at that situation and they say trade it is, instead of the big contract for the 30-year-old. And he just had a great season and he led the league in sacks. Their defense was still 26th in points allowed per drive, 25th in points allowed per game. And they're 20th in total draft capital right now, according to the Tankathon draft power ranking. So they should be looking to add some picks there. I could totally see a world where he gets traded to a different team.
The same teams we were just talking about, if I'm being completely honest.
I got one specific one that I wrote down, though, that we haven't mentioned yet.
Are we thinking of the same team?
How about on 3, we both say the same team? All right. 3, 2, 1. San Francisco.
Oh,
no, not Atlanta, because Atlanta has no picks in this draft. And they have no picks in this draft. Like the Vikings they really have no picks, the Vikings. But after the Vikings, Atlanta just doesn't have anything. So I don't think they are going to be super active trading this offseason, just because most of the time players get traded for picks and they just don't have picks. So I think that they're probably not going to trade for Hendrickson. Wow. But San Francisco, I could see them being a bit aggressive here. They have the 6th most draft picks of anybody in football right now. And their defense slipped to 31st in points allowed per drive last year, 29th in points allowed per game. Their pass rush was disappointing. They were a bottom 10 pressure rate team. And
they don't value the high picks as much. They don't value trading for stars. I think that's I think it's going to be a very busy offseason for San Francisco with the Deebo trade that probably needs to get done or cut or whatever it is. But they've got to fix the defense, man. And I think Hendrickson playing naturally on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa usually on the left, Hendrickson usually on the right. Their front 7 is, I think, an ideal fit for Hendrickson, where he can just kind of stay in his 3-point stance all the time, kind of out wide, and they're always rushing 4 from kind of these severe angles off the edge, right? And he's very much just kind of a speed to power or attack that outside shoulder type of guy. So he would be put in an ideal scheme for his skill set. San Francisco is probably going to be really aggressive fixing that defense with where they finished last year and all the picks that they have. They're losing... why can't I think Dre Greenlaw? Dre Greenlaw is a free agent for them. Javon Hargrave might be a cap casualty. Like their Super Bowl window is still very much open. I think they should feel like so. I could see that them trying to be splashy, and I think Hendrickson as the sack leader would be a very splashy move.
That does make a decent amount of sense. I do agree that the Bengals probably should trade Trey Hendrickson. And honestly, I think the Bengals are going to try and keep him for the sake of trying to save face, like you said, Matt. But I think Bengals fans would rather trade Hendrickson. Also,
I think they'd rather keep him.
I think they're sick of letting all their good players.
No,
I think that's exactly why I think
from what a lot of Bengals fans recognize that he's kind of like a subpar run defender, and I think they would rather just get out while the price is high. I think Bengals fans would agree with us here. If there's any Bengals fans that are watching, let us know in the comments.
Let us know.
I don't get that vibe at all, and I understand it. I also think it's interesting. How stupid the Bengals would be not to trade this edge rusher to save face. What type of dumb franchise would ever consider doing something like that? You've got to get out while the getting out is good with your star edge rusher.
Yeah.
And any AFC North franchise that would do otherwise would be foolish, quite frankly.
Would you trade Brock Purdy for Myles Garrett, Blaiden?
What?
You heard me.
1 for 1?
How about Purdy and a first and a second?
A Purdy, a first and a second for Myles.
Having the Watson and new Purdy contract on the books at the same time.
Dude, I think Andrew Berry would go insane. I think he would actually have an aneurysm or something. I don't know if I would do that.
I don't think it would happen, but
I don't think it would happen. I have seen the Brock Purdy trade rumors though, and
San Francisco is going to do something crazy this offseason, man. I just feel it.
But trade Brock Purdy,
I don't know if it'll be that.
What would be the plan, after that?
I don't think there's a quarterback definitely better than Brock Purdy available.
That's what I'm saying.
At all. I'm not, super crazy high on Purdy or anything, but guys, we've got to do something big, and that plan is we're definitely getting worse at QB. That's step one. Step
Is
two.
he worse than Dylan Gabriel though? Like,
Step two, organize. Step three, boom. Look, I don't know. I think I agree that the 49ers are going to do something big. I don't think it'll be trading Purdy.
I don't think it will be trading Purdy. I still don't think he's worth paying though. I still think his deep ball just is too bad, and he was just so bad in the red zone this year. And like,
Sure.
what's his record without McCaffrey? Jarvis, pull that up. It's like 500. But
Sure, but like
maybe that's the crazy thing is paying him $1 million. So I'm leaving everything open to interpretation here.
Yeah,
They kind of have to do something crazy.
you go back, you get
Everything is crazy.
Trey Lance.
Yeah,
Bring him
redo it.
back.
He's got some time to develop in Dallas, and now you can bring him back. It's like nothing ever
Matt
happened.
Corral's available. Could
Matt
always give
Corral
him a
is
chance.
available. Deshaun Kaiser's still a free agent.
Sean Kaiser.
Felipe Franks has cut his
Felipe Franks
Panthers
is a
special teams.
Pro Bowler.
Pro Bowler. Was he actually?
I think he was a Pro Bowler.
This can't be real life.
I love
Not that
that's
it
worked
matters.
out so well. Not that
Did he
it
make the Pro
matters.
Bowl?
Didn't Tyrod Taylor have like the highest success rate on deep passes this year?
It's going to be on like a tiny sample. They got him in at 234. He's big as hell. He was.
They put out a "Let's send our special team standout Felipe Franks to the."
I
Pro
don't think
Bowl
he
tweet
did.
out.
I'm looking at his Wikipedia and I'm not seeing it.
They're
But
calling
he
him
should.
a
Okay,
wasted roster spot.
We've got Felipe Franks Pro Bowl snub available.
Pro Bowl snub.
Now you can either pay him the league minimum plus he gives you value on special teams, Pro Bowl level value, mind you, regardless of the league recognition, or you can pay Brock Purdy $80 million a year. Yeah, I know what I would do.
I think we go Stafford to the Giants for the number 3 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Purdy to the Rams in an interdivisional franchise quarterback trade.
Historic.
And then the 49ers get Jimmy Garoppolo and a first round pick.
Jimmy Garoppolo's back, baby.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that Jimmy can be the most efficient quarterback in the league, like Purdy is. And they get
We're
the
posting
first.
that clip without context, big dog. You're done. It's been cool, buddy.
Manny.
Cry when it happens, Don't come crying to me when it happens.
I do have a few more guys that I want to hit.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Pitts is also
Yeah.
possibly going to get moved.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get down to like day 3 pick for him. I mean, especially with 1 year left on his deal. Yep.
You just stabbed Theo with a spear, man.
No,
Wasn't me who did it. We're in the business of not shooting messengers. Sorry. But I think there's a lot of good places that he could go. I think if the Chargers wanted to try to add another weapon for cheap, that might be a way to do it. I mean, I could see the Chiefs wanting a more athletic tight end as Kelsey's slowing down. I mean, who knows if he'll even be there. Yeah. Maybe the Colts. I know that they value tight end a lot, and it could be there. Also, Evan Ingram is another guy that I would wonder if he could be on the move and if any of those places would be interested in somebody who can, sort of stretch the field like he can.
Definitely Kansas City. I mean, if Kelsey retires, I was talking to their tight ends coach at the Super Bowl, and he mentioned like how big, people who can remove people from the line of scrimmage don't play in their offense. Like it's meant to be a receiving threat tight end who's there. And Pitts and Ingram, if Kelsey was gone, I'm sure they would. I mean, Ingram's been better, so they'd probably go get Ingram. But and would Ingram fit in Liam Cohen's scheme that likes to run a lot, and you might want a blocker kind of attached more there. So I could see that happening, definitely, like Ingram or Pitts. Pitts needs to move back to, someone needs to put him back on the outside and throw him a bunch of fades. I like him on the Chargers. How many go balls to Quentin Johnston did not get completed this year? Like, or were like an inch away? All of them. I feel like Pitts had his 1,000-yard rookie season like out wide, largely, like kind of picking up these big chunk gains up the sideline, and that no one's really let him do that since, it feels like. So I want to see him. I want to see that back in his arsenal. The Herbert back shoulders would go crazy.
They would. What are your thoughts on Marlon Humphrey? Coming off of kind of a good year, all pro level. The Ravens have been pretty good at drafting corners recently, or drafting secondary players in general. They just got Nate Wiggins. This seems like it could be a pretty good secondary draft.
Yeah, could he be a L'Jarius Sneed type casualty for a contender? I guess I don't know. I haven't heard any speculation about that. I'd like to keep him.
It was just something that I was just thinking about, because I was like,
yeah, he's just kind of
division rival worse.
The guy there, like T. Higgins is the number 2 to Jamar Chase, and that's why he gets put in trade conversation. L'Jarius Sneed, he was, second fiddle a little bit to Trent McDuffie. Like, those guys are just kind of luxuries. With Marlon Humphrey, I mean, he just had an all-pro year in the slot, like, and out wide. He had inside-out versatility.
He was great.
And really played great. So since he's the top dog in that corner room still over Wiggins, I could see him being moved and creating some cap alleviation for the Ravens, who it does have to happen when you're that good for so long. You have to make some tough decisions, but I think Marlon should be safe. I think he should be safe.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy, but I would probably just keep him. I mean, you kind of want to build on what you did, and trading a current All-Pro when you're as close as you are. And how old is he?
He's not.
He's drafted in what, like 2017? I guess he started to get up there.
He is 28. He will be 29 in July.
Okay. I don't know.
Do you think that the Steelers could just press the blow it up button and trade like TJ Watt or something like that? Blaiden, I know you'd probably love to talk about
I'd love
a different edge rusher in your division and get.
I'd love to see that, man. Until they actually execute a rebuild correctly and end up winning a Super Bowl, then I'd be pretty upset. But
my opinion on the Steelers stays the same until something changes. So I think they don't have a quarterback, and I think it's kind of tough to imagine how they're putting themselves into a good position to land one without being bad. But Pittsburgh notoriously just doesn't do that. That's just not what they are about. They want to be competitive every single year. The idea that they're going to, if they traded TJ Watt, it's basically tanking. Basically what it is, right? It's saying we're not going to be good next year.
Same thing as
the game
Browns
plan.
Trading Garrett. Yeah, it's tanking.
Right. And I think I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing in terms of being bad in a year where there's probably going to be some good quarterbacks, I think, and giving yourself a real shot at one when it's been a long time since you've had one. Because you can get guys, where they're drafting. It's not impossible, but banking on it, I mean, the odds are very long anywhere, especially once you exit the top 15 picks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not what Pittsburgh does, for better or for worse.
Yeah, but it really is just more reason to trade him. All those things you just laid out. I think, he's never won a playoff game. TJ Watt has never been a part of it. They haven't
won one since 2016, and they're not okay, I was thinking about this the other. Did I bring this up on the podcast maybe? Who's the worst quarterback to win a playoff game this year?
This year?
Yep. Yeah, it's not an easy. Now I'm kind of being unfair because this is a 1-year thing, and there's been times there's Daniel Jones got one not that long ago. But think about it, dude. Even how awesome were the Vikings this year? They get to the playoffs. Sam Darnold just can't cut it. That's it. Season's over. I think Pittsburgh is in a really tough spot every single year, saying we're just trying to be that team for one game, and that's the peak. and they've done it for so long.
Yeah.
I honestly think a lot of fans would invite a rebuild. I mean, a lot of them want Tomlin out of there, and I get it. There's no one would be satisfied with wild card appearances over and over and over and over. That doesn't mean anything after, like, honestly, one time. You know,
in the 4 playoff games TJ Watt has played in, Pittsburgh also allows 40 points a game.
Good, as they
so
should,
like
man.
they're just not even close to winning one. You know, like not only do they lose in the wild card every year, they get there and they lose, 37-48, 21-42, 31-17, 28-14. Yep. Like the closest TJ Watt came was in a shootout, 45-42 versus Jacksonville back in 2017. But clearly, like, obviously he helps you, and it's not his fault that they allow these 40-point games in the playoffs all the time. But like, he's not having him as a 30-year-old now. Like, he's not going to win you a playoff game by himself. So like, if you can maybe press the reset button, and like same thing with Garrett, man, like he deserves to go chase rings at this point, not maybe someday allow less than 40 points in a playoff game. I just think it makes sense for everybody involved to.
I just don't think the Steelers are going to do it. I don't disagree. I just don't think they're going to do it because they just don't.
Myles Garrett and TJ Watt in Washington.
They've got the money for it.
They do have.
They'd have to do some NBA stuff, trading like 20, 30 first-round draft picks and whatnot to make that happen. I'm afraid, though.
We'll make we'll throw together like a 3-team trade. So like,
they're still having to give up something for the third team. That doesn't mean you just get guys for free. I'm afraid.
We'll make it a 5-team trade.
Then you do.
Then you get stuff for free.
One more name I think could get traded this offseason is Jonathan Allen. Speaking of the Commanders,
ooh,
he's got a year left on his deal. He's about 30. He had a bit of a down year. He's super expensive. He's another like a San Francisco, a Dallas, a Cincinnati. I know in Atlanta is a team with playoff aspirations and just a pass rush that sucks. We'll see. I mentioned they had no picks earlier, but
yeah, I didn't realize. I completely forgot they have no picks like them in Minnesota.
Yeah, they already made a bunch of trades. Like they went all in on being mid.
Yeah, and I remember we were like super critical of that last year.
Yeah, because it's a bad idea. Now you're sitting here, your defense is still ass, and you have tons of money tied up in your quarterback. And
right,
but anyway, I don't have anybody else.
That's pretty much everybody I've got, outside of the fact that I think the Saints might be willing to move some of their old vets for peanuts, if just to try to save money and sort of start the rebuild that's necessary.
I read that Derek Carr has a no trade clause?
Yes.
Why?
Sounds about right.
Saints front office thinks they're playing Candyland and nothing matters and nothing is real. I don't know, man.
It just makes no sense.
Taysom Hill probably has a stake in the team, bro. He's got 2%. It's tough.
I'm just like, Derek Carr's like an obvious guy that they probably should be trying to trade, and they just can't.
Oh, I was thinking about it. Derek Carr would not shock me if he's starting for the Giants. I mean, there's a million teams that have just like no quarterback at all. And if the Saints, like, I don't know, if the Saints are like, we just got to get off some money. Like, we just got to spend a year just getting off some money. Like, we're in such a tough spot. And I think even there at this point, like we've done what can be done, restructuring, even though pushing the money into the future makes it less percentage of the cap. Like, let's just take a year, guys.
Okay. So here's the actual proposal. Ready? We've got Matthew Stafford to the Giants, Brock Purdy to the Browns, Derek Carr to the Rams, and then, who's going to be the Saints? Matt Corral to the Saints.
They got Rattler. They don't need anybody.
That's true. They've got.
They should take like a wide receiver or something.
They'll take a wide receiver. They get Cooper Kupp. That's right.
There we go.
They get the Cupster.
Parlay that shit. everybody.
Yeah, parlay. I don't even remember what all I said. Stafford.
It's okay. They can rewind 10 seconds. They don't need you to remember.
That's true. Yeah, Manny clipped that.
Last thing I'll say, I mentioned Jaire earlier. I think they have to trade him because if they let him walk in free agency, he will sign with the Vikings in 10 seconds, just because that's how it goes. So they should trade him to the Raiders. I'm wondering how long Jack Jones can hold on to his starting spot. I love Jack Jones, ASU legend, but I do think that they might need to not have somebody who bites on every double move at their starting position. And I do think the Raiders could kind of be, I don't know. I think that they could kind of add a lot in a sense that the Texans did 2 years ago and Washington did last year, where they just kind of sign all this eclectic group of free agents and kind of turn things around faster than you'd think. Because, Brady is walking into ownership. It's, a new head coach, Pete Carroll. It's, could they try to be hey, we can make some noise. We're here right now. We got so much cap space. We got a new coach. We got Christian Wilkins. We got Max Crosby. We got Brock Bowers. We got an offensive line. Let's try to add, if someone who cares if Jaire Alexander gets hurt for us? Let's just take these shots while we got all these resources and see what sticks. And I think that they might make a move like that.
Bring Derek Carr back. There you go.
It could happen.
They need a quarterback.
They're getting Shador, man. He worked out with Brady once, and now I'm convinced that he's going to Las Vegas.
I can see it.
At 6. They're going to trade up to 2 with Cleveland. They're going to give them
that, or Russ reunites with Carroll.
Russ. Oh, that'd be so funny. But it's very possible. But I think that'll do it for this episode of Stay Hot. We'll probably do another draft position rankings come our next episode. So let us know what position you would like us to see. We already did edge.
Defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle. Theo's been watching defensive tackle, so that's why he said that. So maybe that will be what we do. But you'll just have to wait and see. So until next time, thank you all for tuning in. And as always, we'll catch you on the flippity flop.